So I've been very lucky over the past year. I've had these two kind of semi-cathartic experiences when pieces of my family or my personal history has come up online. Not like, I go looking for it, but it just appears, right? It's not something that's directly tied to me. It's something that's part of what my family has done. And it's kind of a sense of pride and personal growth and all those things. The first was when I was looking for some visual equipment for work, and I ran across a part that my father originally designed for the International Space Station. He worked for the company that was actually still selling the part, and it was really, really cool that even though he'd passed on, his knowledge and his skills will essentially continue on until such time as they never need that part anymore. The second thing that I ran into was an article that I came across 2 days ago. It was actually sent to me by my wife. She found this project, this archaeological project that's occurring over in Scotland, where they're tracing back the Scots that decided to oppose the English, and my family was part of that. When they went to war with the English, they lost, and many of them were captured, and those that were captured, many of them died before anything happened. Of those that didn't get killed in the camp or die off in the camp, they were given a choice. They can either swear fealty to the crown or face the consequences. My family, being stubborn, obstinate, individuals fighting for personal freedom all the time that we always seem to be, chose to basically tell the crown to go fuck themselves, and we were sold into slavery. The actual term is technically indentured servitude, and there is a difference between traditional indentured servitude, where most people would actually take a contract, and traditional slavery, where you're basically forced into it. And there's in traditional chattel slavery, the individuals they have every child they have is given up, and they're also slaves. Whereas that wouldn't have been the case with my ancestors, but they couldn't have had kids in the first place. But they were sold to the Saugus Iron Works, and the reason I kind of find this interesting is you weren't expected to survive. It was supposed to be a death sentence. The ironworks at the time didn't have protective equipment. There weren't safety features. This is, long time ago, old-timey, whatever, just find another one. And the ironworks had the highest mortality rate of pretty much any industry. If you survived for 10 years, you were considered extremely lucky. The average length of an indentured servant contract is somewhere between 3 and 7 years. So 10 years means that my family was essentially expected to die, or at least the members that came over were expected to die. Somehow, they, being the fiery Scots that they were, they survived. And they graduated out into the world, and at the time there's no social support programs, there's no welfare, there's not even a really refined education system. There was nothing available. So what did they do? Did they just sit there and die off on the streets? No, they actually started a business. It wasn't much of one. Something kind of started out of the shed in the back. They harvested ice out of a lake in Lynn, Massachusetts. They founded the Lynn Ice House, which is still around today. I don't know if it's the same company or whether it's been reincorporated, but basically there was a lake that they had some property on, and they went out and they harvested ice from the lake, and this was how people kept things cool prior to refrigeration. They would take the ice, they would store it with a whole bunch of hay and back it out, and then they just move it along so that people had these ice blocks and they ended up being very successful, because most other people who were doing this practice ended up running into some serious pollution concerns associated with the rising industry at the time. My family happened to be on a lake that didn't have any industry surrounding it, so they actually didn't have purity problems. But as actual costs decrease for home refrigeration, eventually the business started to fail, and the result of that was that my great-grandfather essentially drank himself to death. The result of my great-grandfather drinking himself to death was my grandfather ended up having to drop out of school. He never graduated high school. He ended up going to work for GE, sweeping floors. By the time he left GE and retired, he actually stayed there the entire time of his working career. He had moved from general sweeping of floors as a child to make ends meet to head machinist of the entire shop in Lynn. My father was the first member of his family to not only graduate high school, but to also graduate college, and he went on to get a master's degree and a professional engineer's license. And I have also followed that path. I have 2 degrees. I have a degree in psychology and a degree in chemical engineering, and I am about halfway to my PE license. I've already passed the engineering or the FE test, the fundamentals of engineering test, and I'm working on my EIT. So the fundamental lesson that I've learned, and I've known this for a while, we'd already done all this historical research. So when you find this article that talks about, oh yeah, here's some portion of people in this battle that were sent off to the Saugus Ironworks, and I go, yeah, that my family's like one of the 500 or 600 people that were sent there. It's pretty cool. So what do? I decide to be antagonistic. I post a tweet saying, yeah, white slavery, this is, when we do it, it's called indentured servitude. And it's true. Because the choice that my family faced was essentially work until you die. And that was what was expected. That was going to be the outcome because we refused to kiss the ring. But why would I post an antagonistic statement to Twitter? Aside from the fact that sometimes I actually like being antagonistic, and it's really enthralling baiting people into revealing emotional characteristics and engaging those debates. A friend of mine, or a Twitter friend, I guess, asked me, why do you bother? Why did you do this? And the answer is, I take tremendous offense at people who wish to play a victim culture. I take tremendous offense at people who wish to talk about oppression or privilege, who wish to argue that the reason that they are not being successful is because of some sort of exterior force that's imparted by white men, or white men, or any sort of combination therein. Because my family never had privilege. We were bound and sold in slavery. We walked out of that and we started our own business. When that failed, we didn't have school that we graduated from, and yet we still managed to carve out a decent life. My father busted his ass and he managed to get a college degree, and I did too. I have student loans that I have to pay. I took out the loans. I have to pay them back. Nobody's coming in to bail my ass out. So when somebody comes in and says that they aren't successful because of people like me, it actually I take offense, because they are belittling the entirety of an individual who worked for what they have. My wife is the first member of her family to graduate college. First member. I'm second generation college. My wife is first generation college. And yes, she's a woman, and somehow yet she just turned around and basically applied to a whole bunch of management positions and was interviewed for, or got an interview for nearly every single one. I think of the 4 that she applied to, she got an interview for 3. She actually got an interview for 4, but she'd already accepted a position by the time the 4th one came around. And she legitimately got job offers with full letters of acceptance from every single place that she interviewed at. And her gender wasn't holding her back in any way. Her personal skills that she has worked hard and developed. I mean, she's a fucking English major. This is liberal arts. She doesn't have while she has a degree, it's not technically applicable. She even was offered a management position for an engineering department, working at a nuclear facility. This is amazing to me. That she can walk out and do that. She has amazing talents and amazing skills, and because she has worked on developing that, she's been successful. It's not because she's white. Just like it's not because I'm a male that I got my engineering degree. It's not because I'm a male that I fucking passed the FE. So whenever somebody comes in and wants to sit there and accuse their personal failures on some sort of external force that's keeping them back, it just pisses me off, because I worked for everything that I have. My father worked for everything that he had. My grandfather not only worked for everything that he had, but he also worked to keep his brothers and sisters alive. His family had to survive. He was there to do that. My family came here from slavery, so there's really no system of oppression that I'm going to believe in. And every single time somebody wants to talk about some external force or some societal problem, be it the feminists, be it the Black Lives Matter people, whatever have you, my family's faced the same thing. I have faced my own challenges, and other people have too, and this is why these groups end up running into problems. And when they start asking for shit like reparations, it just makes me fucking nauseous. If you don't like what you have in life, get up off your ass, take a moment for self-reflection as to why you have failed, why you haven't achieved what you wanted, and when you have that moment of reflection, decide what you're going to do to correct it. Don't blame everyone else for your fucking problems. But I thought it was really kind of cool to share that. I'm going to post a link to the article at the bottom of this page, because there's not that many times where you're actually going to run into a situation where it is reaching out and talking about your family history. That's not very common. At least this is the first time it's happened to me. So thought that'd be kind of cool to share.